my stitchy friends, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to any new subscribers who have happened to stumble into my video. I hope you enjoy some of the things that I'm showing you here today. So today is going to be a little bit of a stitch with me and a little chat about what I'm actually doing here. For those of you who haven't seen this particular design before, this is called London and it's by a designer called Thea Gouverneur. I have an actual picture here of this piece. Here is the full picture of this, and it's pretty big. There's quite a lot going on here. There is a lot of backstitch and a lot of, I think it's all so I was going to say all full crosses, but no, there's a lot of backstitch. I don't know if there's half stitches, but there's definitely a lot of backstitch in this, and I really love it. I have a sort of connection with London. I lived just outside London for about 12-13 years, so I'm quite familiar with certain areas in London, and I have been back obviously to visit the place. But the landmarks here I am familiar with. There's Big Ben, and I also love to stitch buildings. I love landscapes, that kind of thing. So this chart really suited me, and you can also get this chart with a black fabric. I chose the off-white. This is definitely not a white fabric. If I put something white next to it, you might be able to tell that it's a sort of oatmeal, or I think they call it ecru or beige. And this is as much as I've got done. I have done the first building, which is sort of hidden behind there. So I've done this one. Let's have a look. Sorry, I've done this one here. The one with the blue dome, and this one, and obviously these two. I think the last time I showed this, because there's a bit of a story behind this, last time I showed you this, I had only done this particular section of this tower. I don't think I had done this one. So this is the one that I've been working on. And there was a bit of a story with this, because I moved house, God, goodness me, I think it's a couple of years ago now. That's quite scary, because it just feels like yesterday that I moved house, but it was a couple of years ago. And during the move, I had packed everything up, and I think I had packed this particular project in a different box to all my other projects for some reason, maybe because I found it or discovered it after I'd sealed a box of projects. And when I got to my new residence and I finally got to unpacking, I couldn't find this project, and I worried that I had lost it, because it's actually not that cheap. It's quite an expensive kit. So I was just really hoping that it would turn up again. And eventually it did. And you know, when that kind of way, when things just turn up when you stop looking for them. I mean, that really just happens to me. My mother always used to tell me, because she's quite religious, and she always used to tell me to pray to St. Anthony and that he would find things for me. I don't know if St. Anthony is actually a saint of finding lost things, but she always used to say that. And if I ever told her that I'd lost something, she'd say, "Oh, I'll say a prayer to St. Anthony for you." So anyway, it doesn't hurt. I did say a little prayer, and lo and behold, this turned up quite unexpectedly. But I'm pleased about it because I really like it. And even though I think I did a whole few months of it a while back, a few years ago, and then I got totally tired of it. And I think you can't blame me. Look at this here. There's a lot of this gold cranic color, these gold strands, which are really fiddly. Now this was absolute nightmare to do, because there is no way you can get it 100% correct, as the pattern says, because there are so many lines all intermingled. And I remember also I had a bit of a trouble with doing the backstitch, because the backstitch on the chart isn't the most clear. I have to say this. I did not find it that easy to figure out what color strands were used for certain areas of backstitch. There is not a chart. They do have the backstitch lines, but there's sort of like a little symbol on the left of the building, pointing to the building with a little symbol to say, okay, this area is back stitched in this colour. And then maybe a bit further down, there's another symbol saying with an arrow, okay, this bit is stitched with this colour, but it's not definitive. It doesn't define exactly what lines are stitched with what colour. So it's all a bit vague. But I just sort of go with the flow. Whatever I think it is whatever I think it is, right? So I just go with that. And I have had to go into the group and ask a few questions like, does anybody know what backstitch colour we're using for this bit or that bit? Because yeah, it's a bit confusing. Apart from that, it's a nice stitch. The fabric is nice and soft. I do like that because I like soft fabric, but I like it on taut, you know, I like it quite tight on my frame. So let's see. So I've done these two buildings and I think I've started working down a little bit because I'm not liking the harsh line any longer. I want to sort of see something happening down below. So that's where I'm going. I'm going to move this way a little bit so I can see what I'm doing on the camera. So I'm coming down a little bit here and I'm going to finish, eventually I'm going to finish this top part. There's a little spire up there. And this whole building here has not been backstitched yet, apart from these white, red things, red lines, whatever they are. I think this looks really nice from a distance. I think when you look close up, it looks a bit shabby in certain ways, a bit untidy. But once you've got it back, you can see the 3D effect. When I look at this, even when I look at this through the camera, even without the lines, it does have a certain 3D effect to it. So it's just lovely. It's a really nice, apart from the back stitching instructions, it's a really nice stitch. So yeah, maybe I'm just going to do a few stitches here whilst I chat to you, and I'm going to make it an easy stitch because I don't feel like frogging stuff out, to be honest. So what I'm doing is I'm using one strand, so that's what you're supposed to use. One strand. I think you're supposed to use one strand. I don't remember reading on the instructions, which I don't have with me at the moment. I don't remember reading on the instructions that you need to use more than one strand. But I do remember when I was watching people stitching on this, or I was looking at this on the Facebook page, and I was looking at things people were saying about it. Some people were saying that they did it in 2 strands because they wanted it to look thicker. But then other people were disagreeing with that and saying that the reason they've got 1 strand is for a reason, right? Because it produces a certain effect. And I didn't want to ruin whatever effect that was by just going and using 2 strands. So I'm quite happy to just use 1 strand. But I think this is actually 16 count. And you can definitely see the coverage isn't fantastic, but it's not a full coverage piece, is it? It's not a full coverage piece, so you don't need that tight tapestry ruggish look. I think it's supposed to look kind of sparse, and I think you're supposed to have the stitches are very apparent, so they're meant to be quite thin. If you've got really thick stitches, you can hardly see the cross itself. So yeah, it's supposed to be apparent that you can actually see the cross very well, very sharply, and that's what you get with 1 strand. But if, say for instance, if that dark color was a whole big area of background, yeah, it wouldn't look so good, would it? Because you'd have little bits of white peeping through, little bits of color peeping through, and that wouldn't be great. So I have got into this chart. I picked it up again about a week ago, I'd say, and I thought, you know what, I really want to get moving with this chart. I really, really do, and finally give it some love because it has been sort of put away, like many things do. But I really wanted to give it some love, so I brought it out again and started working onto this building. So I've been thinking about March and thinking about doing half an hour a day on this one, or even if not a day, bumping the camera. Even if not a full day, I've been thinking about doing, even if not, so I've been thinking about doing between 30 minutes to an hour a day on this every day. Maybe not the weekends, I don't know about the weekends. But during the week, maybe doing half an hour to an hour. And then doing anything else that I feel like is what I've got going at the moment. But I thought if I can do a daily 30 or a daily hour, that all really, after, a bit of time, it really does show, the progress does show. But again, I'm always sort of a little bit reluctant to set particular goals because I know myself well, and I've said it many times that if I'm told to do something, I just don't do it. So I just very much a free spirit and like to do my own thing. Oh, I'm having trouble getting the needle through here. So yeah, this one, it's a joy to come back to something that you haven't worked on for a while, that you haven't seen for a while, that you haven't appreciated for ages. And when you come back and see how much work you've done on it, it really makes a difference. But I can't tell you how much the backstitch makes such a difference to a chart like this. It really does. Now, I did like the effect of the black fabric choice, but I don't want to stitch on black fabric. No. I've always found it more difficult to stitch. And what's always been important for me is obviously the chart, the design is important to you whenever you're stitching, whatever you've chosen to stitch, you have to like the picture. But the actual stitching progress, I've realized after a while has to be just as enjoyable, because it just gets boring after a while, or it gets tedious, or you start not picking it up, stuff like that. So I thought, no, I'm going to go with the traditional light coloured background, because to be fair, there isn't a lot of white stitches, if any. I think this is probably the lightest stitch there is on here, and I don't have any problem seeing it on this canvas. So it has to be something that you enjoy and you don't have a problem stitching. So I've got, the thing with doing this as a kit, you don't get, obviously, a PDF file to go with it. I don't know if Thea, Gouverneur are ever going to produce PDF files for their kits. It's possible they probably won't, to limit the copyright infringement. But it would have been so much easier to do it on a kit, because the pages they give you are so big. The sheets of paper they give you so big, it's difficult to, even when you divide them up, like if you take one large sheet and you do 2 working copies from that one sheet, the dividing line in the middle is always a little bit, where does this line up, when you come to an edge? So I had a little bit of difficulty trying to figure out, but then I thought, well, this must be easy because this color is just an extension. The color below is an extension of the color above. So yeah, it kind of makes sense when you look at it properly. But if you're not paying attention, if you make a mistake either to the left or to the right of one stitch, when you're starting a new page, like this is one A4 page, one A4 landscape page. So I come onto the bottom A4 landscape page, and if you shift over by one stitch, left or right, the whole thing is ruined. You've just messed it all up. So that's the only thing that I find a little bit tricky with taking photocopies of large charts. And then there's always that horrible dividing line where you fold over. There's always that bit where you fold a page over, or it comes folded over, and it's a little bit faded. The symbols are a little bit faded. I tell you what I do. Here's a tip. I take a photograph straight away. So if any more fading occurs, I've gotten a photograph of it as I purchased it, so I can see the symbols quite clearly. So if they do happen to continue to fade along the crease line of a page, then I can always refer to my photograph that I have. So there, if you do kits and use paper patterns, that's a bit of a useful tip there, is to take photographs of it, or scan it into your, keep copies scanned into your drive. Now I think this colour looks very similar to the colour beside it. I hope I haven't used the wrong colour here. I'm going to just quickly check because they look very, very similar. I hope I have used the right colour, because the last thing I need now is to begin with the wrong colour. So we've got this symbol, first two symbols. Okay, they are similar, but this one is supposed to be more of a bluish colour. I don't think it is. I think I've picked up the wrong colour, guys. That's the colour it's supposed to be. Let's see the outside colour. That one, that one. No, I think it's right. I think I've got the right colour. Oh, my days. It's such a close match, and it's number 1 and 2 on the colour chart, so I could have easily picked up the wrong one, but I think it's okay. The fact that they're so similar is probably a good thing, because if it is wrong, you're not going to really be able to tell, are you? Okay, looking more closely now, yeah, this one, the one I'm doing is actually more of a white colour, more whitish than the one on the right, which is more of a cream. Oh, goodness me. Catastrophe averted. This is bumping my hand at the back. So it to me, it feels a bit slower than what I remember. I don't know whether it's because I'm actually slower at stitching lately, or I don't know, but I seem to be taking ages to get any part of it done. But it's only when I look at it over a matter of weeks or months do I realise I've actually done so much, if I've been doing it consistently. What else can I tell you about this chart? I don't really know. I think I've said everything I need to say about this chart. I might remember something else in a moment. I'm really getting into the full crosses at the moment, and some of my full coverage pieces I have converted again. Yes, I know. Again, I've converted to full cross, because I think I've been feeling a bit sluggish. I mean, I totally enjoy my 10 stitching, but I've been feeling like, oh my God, it's just, doing the snaking row by row by row. And sometimes I've sat here and all I've done is like 100 stitches, just taking me ages to do one stitch and then the next stitch and then park it and then the next stitch and then park it and then the next stitch and then park it. And I think after a few weeks, I just get so bored. And I think I really would like to just go on ahead and do some more stitches. But then I always complain that I don't like the gaps and what have you. So it's really tricky. So now what I'm doing, I was watching some people stitching 1/1 full cross on their videos, and some of them I mean, you don't have to do a huge, you don't have to you don't have to do your entire thread. You can stop whenever you want to stop. This is the thing that gets me. Everybody says, oh, I just keep going till my thread runs out. Well, that could be like at the very bottom of the chart, and that for me is really like crazy. That's crazy stitching that I can't get my head around, because once I see a few stitches at the bottom of the chart that I've done, I think I've got to go and finish the area or do some more stuff around it, because it just looks too scattered, right? So when I was watching some people saying, oh yeah, but you can just stop, you can do like a little area and then end your thread, and then get another thread and do, say, maybe just two squares of limited cross country, and just end your threads and don't park them. Just simply don't park them, because if you start parking them, you're back to the parking thing again, and then you're back to having the threads all in the way. Yesterday I picked up my sad fairy and there was a load of hairballs stuck to my threads. She had laid down near my I'd left it on the sofa. She doesn't really attack my cat doesn't really attack my projects, but she might sort of lie down and be touching it and not realize. So I had it propped up on my sofa and I hadn't even realized this, and she had been lying on it or next to it. And when I went to pick up a thread from some of the park threads I had on the canvas, it was completely tangled up with hairballs. And I thought, oh my God. So I had to cut a good bit off to get the tangle out after trying to pick out some of her hair, because she's a very, very fluffy ragdoll. And I just thought, you know what, I can't be bothered with this now. I'm just going to cut some of these threads away, and I'm going to start doing limited cross country again and see how we go. And I tell you, I'm not the only one. I've heard so many floss tubers say, oh, I'm thinking about changing to tent now, or I'm thinking about going back to full crosses now, or I'm changing up here, changing up there. I'll tell you this, after so many years of stitching, I am not afraid of switching it up at any point in any of my full coverage pieces. I can just literally continue at any point and suddenly switch to full cross or carry on with the tent. And you can see it when you're close up working on it, but once you put it up and you stand a little bit away from it, you just cannot tell the difference. And everybody I have asked, whenever I've switched over from tent to full cross, and I've asked quite a few people, trust me, can you see any difference in these crosses? And I just say crosses, I don't say tent or anything. Can you see any difference in, like, whether it's one strand or two, if it's like two legs or one leg? And they're just like, no, I can't tell at all. They just don't even know what they're looking for. So yeah. And sometimes I've gone in to look and see if it's if I can actually pinpoint where I started doing the crosses or the tent, and I can't find it, honestly. So when I feel like I want to switch it up, I mean, it's not going to be a daily thing, but then I'm not afraid to do that. So I started making my sad fairy a focus piece, which is great because I want to get as much as I can done on my sad fairy. I don't think my initial plan of finishing her this year is going to work, because I haven't been doing it consistently every day, let's say. But that's okay, because next year might be the year, I don't know, possibly. There's about 70,000 stitches left to do, so it's not an easy one to finish this year, if you know what I mean, without putting in a lot of effort. So I've been working on her, and then some days I've been thinking, oh, I don't want to do it because I'm tired of doing the row by row. I'm tired of doing the picking up, threading my needle all the time, just to get in 50 stitches or something, and just not that interested. And I thought I really need to change my approach now, because otherwise I'm going to just drop it and I'm not going to do it at all. Just not going to do it. I'm going to put her away. So I said to my husband, what do I do? He said, well, just go back and do some full crosses then. Just cut your two strands into one strand. And that's what I did. I got my little snippy scissors and I cut the two part threads in half. So I have two strands hanging for a part thread. So I cut one off, wound it back on my bobbin, and carried on with the one strand that was already still there, and worked in a few of the threads and so on. And yeah, really enjoyed it. And then I got to a certain distance and thought, right, this is where I stop, because I know if I keep going, I'm going to get too many gaps, and that's when I start to not like it. So I have to be mindful of how far I keep going. So instead of just going, crazy all over the place, I just say, right, I'm going to do this little area, then I'm going to end my thread. Not like 2 or 3 stitches, I can do maybe like 20 stitches or something, but I'm going to try to, be mindful of the path that I'm taking. Because I tell you, it is so easy to create a scattered area of confetti stitches. It takes like 5 minutes, honestly. And then you come to it, and sometimes I'm like, where is that stitch that I need to do? I can't find it because my grid has disappeared because there's stitches everywhere. I can't see the grid anymore. And I've done a whole like 5 boxes of 10, so it's like 500 stitches. And they're all scattered inside there. And I'm like, I can't find these 2 stitches somewhere in the middle here that I need to do. So I know that some people are doing the method where they just pick the top left symbol and they continue, and then the next symbol next to it, and then the next symbol next to it, like the typewriter method that Stitching Mummy does, and they keep going. But I find it easier, actually. I do agree it's better to fill in your gaps as you go, but I find it easier to do the stitches that are, say there's 2 or 3 stitches that are a little spread apart but not too spread apart, because they're the ones that when you come to do them, if you come to do them too late, you've got thread going over already done stitches at the back. So if there's like, say 2 or 3 stitches of the same color and they're like 5 stitches apart each in one area, I'll do them first before I do all the stitches around it so that the thread gets covered at the back. I hope that makes sense. So let me know if any of you do it like that. How do you avoid, because you know when you get like all the little gaps, say for instance you work cross country and you do all the big areas of color, you're going to end up with loads, oops, sorry, bumping my camera again. You're going to end up with loads of little ninjas. How do you, and you maybe get like 2 or 3 colors, 2 or 3 symbols that are the same symbol, but they're just a little bit away from each other, but you've done all the stitches around them. So when you come to do them, you're like, I've got to travel behind all these done stitches. So I'm just curious whether you do the least amount of stitches first to the most amount of stitches. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so I'd be interested to hear how many of you tackle. And which direction do you go in? Do you just go from top to bottom? Do you go from left to right? Do you go sort of diagonally down? You know, that kind of way. So yeah, that's kind of the sort of thing that I'm looking at the moment and being intrigued by. Obviously with something like this, you're only going in whatever direction you have to go in because that's the way it is. I think I should start marking off some of these stitches now soon. So yeah, I was so disappointed to get hairballs stuck in my part threads strands, and I think that was just the icing on the cake that said, okay, look, I'm just going to cut them because I've been thinking about doing it anyway, and I'm going to continue stitching. So next time I bring Sand Fairy out, and the other thing is the page that I've started doing on that chart is all this sort of beige color, that is at the end of this here. Oh my goodness, beige and light, very, very light blue, B5200, which is the whitish color. And then we've got the 318, which is just like a very light purple, like really light shades everywhere. So it's driving me crazy. If I have too many gaps with all those light colors, I cannot see which stitches I have done and which stitches I haven't done, and the grid just disappears. With that chart, at least I'm using the friction pen for the grid, so that is pretty apparent. So I've got a better chance of seeing it than on the Easy Guide, which is like a light grey. So if you're doing all light grey and white stitches, you're never going to see that Easy Guide. It just disappears. Honestly, when you're doing cross country, the Easy Guide disappears. And there's only little bits remaining that might be able to help you. So I did a thing, and I wasn't going to say it because I was feeling like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm crazy. But I'll say it anyway. I purchased a new kit, and I will come back and show it to you. Or actually, I just put it on the screen because I don't have it with me here at the moment. And I just could not help myself. I just thought it was beautiful. And unfortunately, it is a paper pattern. I don't really mind too much about the paper pattern. But again, I just loved it. But I have decided I'm not going to start it until I've at least got to about 80% on this one, or close to, you know, finishing this one, which is why I'm trying to get what I can done. But I am tempted to start it. Don't even encourage me, not even slightly, because I will. I mean, you only have to say the word and I will go and start it. So yeah, just be quiet, you guys. But I thought, yeah, I really love this one. And it's been a long time since I bought a kit or anything like that. So yeah, we'll see. But I definitely want to do it. And it just fulfills my love of, I don't know, landscapes. That's what I love to do. Maybe I should have been an architect in a different lifetime. I don't know. But I'm just enjoying doing them. And I heard, I'm really rubbish with names, but I heard one floss tuber saying, I just can't remember what certain people said, what their floss tube channels were, but this lady was saying that she just loves landscapes, and then she felt like she should be buying different charts or different designs, but then she just decided, no, if that's what I like, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. If that's what I really want to stitch, I'm just going to let myself stitch those things. And I just sort of agreed with what she was saying, because I just think if that's what I like to stitch, then I'll go ahead and stitch. Not every single chart that I do, but yeah, quite a good number of my charts have got some sort of scenery in them. So I'm kind of in an awkward position at the moment, which is making me go a bit slower. I do actually go a little bit faster than this when I'm not recording, but this is fine for the moment. So that is the news, and I don't have, as far as my plans are, I mean, I just don't have plans, do I? I just do whatever, whenever. Sweewee, I think is what they call it. So I don't really think there's any point talking about plans too much when there really isn't plans. I think I was looking at my two oldest charts as my focus pieces, but now I'm trying to be a bit more relaxed about that, even because I'm really missing working on some of my other projects, and I feel like if I just keep tying myself down, this is the thing, you want to do something, but then when you actually do it, it starts to, the excitement or let's just say the enthusiasm starts to fizzle out, and you want to just go in a different direction. But I am enjoying, it's not like I'm not enjoying doing my oldest pieces. I just miss all the other pieces that I have. And recently I found one, and I brought it back out of the cupboard. This is called Melody of the Night. I think I mentioned this one in my whip parade. And this is one that I'd UFO'd. And because I just really did not want to stitch in it. The whole confetti of it drove me absolutely nuts. And I just thought, I can't do this. So I stuck it in a drawer, UFO'd. Now, some of my UFOs did not make it, did not survive. But this one seemed to. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my goodness, I quite like that. Maybe I'll have another go. So I punched a couple of stitches in, but then I realised that all the threads that I'd had in a box for it had all been dispersed into different areas and projects. So I had to get more threads for it. And then I thought, well, if I'm getting more threads for it, is this coming back into my rotation then? It's like, it's not a UFO anymore, is it? So then I thought, okay, fine, whatever. This thing has just decided to come back into my rotation. So I got a couple of more threads for it, and I think it's not going to be something I'm going to be doing every single day or week, but I'm going to definitely put in a few, because it was so colourful, and I rarely do anything that colourful. I do love colour, but I tend to be drawn more towards dark things in a way. But lately I've been doing so many browns that I quite welcomed this colourful piece at the time I saw it. So yeah, it's going to get a little bit of love. And my goodness me, did it take me ages to get a few stitches done, because that is one that I'd swapped from doing 10 stitches to crosses and back to 10 stitches. Then I went from 2 strands to 1 strand and was still doing tent. And there is a video where I was explaining when I was actually stitching this way back, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, did a video about how I was doing 10 stitch with one strand, but I was doubling my leg, and that was keeping off the bulk, because the cross country with 2 strands, see, the cross country with 2 strands tent is too bulky, even for me. I'm okay with doing 2 strands tent if I'm doing like row by row, because it's all contained and all my stitches are being covered at the back row by row, and it's all like, you know, organized and neat. But if I start going all over the place with 2 strands tent, it creates merry hell at the back of the work. I can't get my needle through, it gets too thick. It's just, yeah, there's just too much crisscrossing at the back. So I fully prefer the 1 strand, in which case on 25 count for me has to be a full cross, because 1 strand tent on 25 count is not really the best. I can't do 28, I can't do 32, it's too much for me. Don't really enjoy it. I can do 28, but I then don't enjoy the tiny stitches. 25 for me is perfect, but if I'm going to do the 1 strand, it has to be, if I'm going to do the full cross, it has to be the 1 strand. So with that, with the melody of the night, as I was just saying, I've swapped about. So now I've picked it up again and I'm in the full cross mode. I am going to continue that with 1 strand full crosses. And I can, when I look at it, I can see where I've done a few tent, and I can see where I might have done a few crosses, but only because I've searched vigilantly for them, but not because I'd really be able to tell. So I'm going to continue that way, but my goodness, is it so confetti. Those Leonid Afremov charts, you can go and find them. They're fantastic. They're colourful. They're fun to stitch, but they're also crazy to stitch because they're so confetti heavy. But I will just go at the pace I have to go and just do a few stitches here and there. So yeah, I'm kind of enjoying my little ideas at the moment. Let's see, next week I'll probably come back and tell you I've switched everything back to tent. But isn't life exciting when you just talk for half an hour about something you're really enjoying, and then the next time you come you say, no, I'm not interested in that anymore. It just goes to show that some of us stitchers are completely bonkers, and I don't care. I mean, I'm quite happy to be bonkers. I'm fine with that. I can swap and change around. I think that's the nice thing about doing your own hobbies, is that you can mess around as much as you want. It doesn't hurt anybody. Yeah, some people are going to be offended in the internet world. Some people are going to say, oh, I don't agree with what you're doing. I don't agree with this. I don't care. I do what I want to do. They do what they want to do. That's just the way it goes. I mean, I think I had a comment once ages ago, and I just literally laughed. Somebody said to me, I think it was one of the whip parades I had done like 4 years ago. She said that I was touching my fabric too much while I was showing it. I was pulling at my fabric too much. I was thinking, honestly, like, you know, firstly, I can touch my fabric as much as I want to. I mean, I don't need to ask you permission to touch my fabric. And secondly, is that the only thing you focus on? Like, couldn't you take anything positive from the, you know, me showing you my, and if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. So I just don't understand. Really don't understand when people come out with silly comments like that. You know, it's easy just to just move on and say nothing at all, which is always best. I have been watching some new floss tubers. I can't think of the names again. I've been watching, they're probably not new on FlossTube, but maybe new to me. Some people that I discover every so often. I've just discovered Stitching Nonny. So you can go and take a look at Stitching Nonny. She's in Australia. She's got such a fabulous bouncy character. I love her character when she's talking. She has these little quips that make me laugh, and she's just fantastic. And I love a lot of her projects as well. So yes, I'm watching Stitching Nonny, and I've been watching a few others. There's also been some sad news with Crafty Emily. Crafty Emily has had some personal sad news about her. I think it's her fiance that's been taken ill. So yeah, that was upsetting to watch, and want to send Emily my very best wishes, and I hope everything turns out okay. It's not nice when something goes wrong and we watch floss tubes and things, you know, happen to people just as they do to anybody. And well, she was quite brave to come on and talk about it, I think, because I would find that quite difficult. I'm not the type of person that can open up very easily at all to the general public. I tend to sort of disappear. I just don't know how to tell people things that are truly personal. And if I'm really sad, I don't really want to be facing the whole world, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I don't know, we're all different types of characters, I suppose. Anyway, on to the positive. Oh, somebody asked me, I'm sorry if I don't answer every comment. Sometimes I don't get notifications for comments and I don't see them. And sometimes I can't remember if I'd said it on my video already. A lot of the time I do address things on my video, and somebody asked me what stand I use, and I use a Lowry stand, and I do switch between Q snaps and Nerge hoops, and I switch quite frequently, and I use the extension, the Lowry extension as well. So I'm always taking things off Q snaps and putting them onto Nerge hoops, and vice versa. My husband sometimes says you do more switching around than you do actual stitching. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I just get in the mood. I get into the mood of doing, sometimes the Q snaps, they just drive me nuts. And then sometimes I just think, oh, I can't be doing with the Nerge thing. I want to go back to the Q snap. I don't know what it is with me, but I just got to chop and change things all the time. It's actually quite tiring. But you know, when you want to do something and you just can't carry on until you do it, that's kind of how it is with me. If I feel like I'm not enjoying stitching on this hoop today, I want to go and get my Q snap. If I don't do that, it will drive me nuts. I have to go and get the damn Q snap and I have to put the fabric in it. Otherwise, no more stitching. It's just the way it is. And I find it uncanny, but hey, I'm trying to be really honest here. Is there anybody out there who's like that? Because yeah, but it is tiring, because maybe there's not even a problem with what it being on a hoop. It's just my brain. I don't know. My brain kicking in to say, no, we want to do something different, because yeah, chop and change, chop and change. Okay, this thread is starting to get a bit short. So yeah, what else was I going to say? I've just remembered now. So March, is March monogamous March, or is there a something March that I'm not aware of? Because people were talking about full coverage February, but I only ever do full coverage anyway, mostly, apart from this and a couple of others. So for me, there's no point doing a full coverage February. But I'm thinking about March. Somebody said full coverage. I'm going to do a full coverage. I'm going to do a monogamous full coverage piece in March. And I thought, my goodness, that means that 12 or 13 of my pieces won't get touched. And I don't know if I can handle that. Because like 30 days is a long time, right? To be looking at the same piece, especially when we're not used to being monogamous. So let me know what you think. If you would do a monogamous March, what would you do? Would you pick your biggest piece? How would you feel about not touching the others? These are just questions I'm interested in knowing what you stitchers think, because I don't know if it's worth starting that route or not, or just not bothering with that, just continuing with my swee-wee life as I do. I quite like the idea of doing maybe a monogamous piece and what I used to call and a bit on the side. So the bit on the side would be when I got tired of the monogamous piece. So it would be semi-monogamous, not fully monogamous, semi-monogamous. Okay, I think I've had too much coffee. So this is probably a good place to stop. and to stop talking silliness. But yeah, I've enjoyed showing this chart to you again, and I know some of you, if you're still around, really enjoyed this chart when I was doing videos of it back then. So let me know what you think, and would you like me to come back again and do a stitch with me on this chart, or would you like me to do a stitch with me on one of my other charts maybe? I know a lot of people are really into the River Walk charm at the moment, but that's going on. River Walk charm at the moment, I'm stuck in a tree and it's driving me mad. Until I get out of that tree, I don't think I'm going to be enjoying it as much. So yeah, do you think I should maybe do my daily 30 on this one, or 30 minutes to an hour? Will make a huge difference, because if I do that, maybe on my birthday I might be able to start the other chart that I've got. So yeah, which I think by the time I get to October, I'd like to do that, unless I'm convinced to start beforehand. But I've already warned you not to convince me. So guys, I hope you have a lovely week ahead of yourselves, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the week. And I'll be back again, I'm sure. So take care and enjoy your stitching. Have fun, and I'll see you again.